welcome to today's podcast. And Amber, how are you doing this fine day?
I'm well, Martin. How are you?
I'm doing great. Are you excited for today's topic?
I would love to say yes, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
So because you always, or not always, but often like to hoodwink me with the topic, I'm excited with anticipation, but always slightly nervous. And I know you, and I know what you're going for is, okay, Feisty PM, what do you think of this? And so I am aware that there's a bit of provocation that's coming. So I think that's how I'm feeling.
Well, that's perfect because that's literally the topic of today.
Oh, no.
So, Tony Robbins frequently talks about the six human needs, and he talks about the balance between certainty and uncertainty. And certainly, right now, we are facing uncertainty in life and in projects that has not been seen to this degree for some time. And so today's topic for us to discuss is certainty and uncertainty in projects.
Wow. Okay. Certainty and uncertainty in projects. Yeah. I mean, for those of you that follow me and have been a part of this sort of Feisty PM journey for quite a few years, you'll know that I think it was 3 years ago, but literally I can't remember. 2 or 3 years ago on New Year's Eve, I chose, because I was in the practice of choosing a word for the year, I chose the word uncertainty to perseverate on for that year. I do think it was maybe even a few more years ago than that, maybe 4 or 5 years. I'm trying to remember where I was working, what I was doing, and how I celebrated New Year's Eve that year, because for some reason, I felt very strongly about claiming this word. But it wasn't certainty, it was uncertainty. So this is something I know quite a bit about. But I would say at a personal level, my journey with the word uncertainty at a personal level didn't just pertain to my project work. It was like this overwhelming sense of like, how as a human have I embraced or felt the need to have certainty in all of my pockets of life? And how has that served me? And I think at the time I was I was considering that it hadn't served me very well. Like, I think for me, it was just this idea of, well, certainty is pretty elusive, and that was even a few years ago, and I would say today, it's even more uncertain, and certainty is even tougher to lay your hands on. But at the time, I was thinking about, do I handle uncertainty well? And I knew the answer, and that was no, I don't. And, one of the reasons I have called myself the Feisty PM is because I've always sort of filled this place in the in the world around me. I'm always the feisty one. I'm always the one who likes to do hard work and would prefer it to be very difficult, near impossible, in order for me to be interested in it. And so I think for me, I was like, oh, I don't like certainty. I'm not sure about certainty. I'm uncomfortable with uncertainty. Let's go. And I think that's why I chose the word. What I can tell you over the course of that year was it transformed my thinking. Thinking about uncertainty and how it made me feel changed the way I hold certainty altogether. As a project manager, I regularly am reminded that certainty is elusive. We just don't have it. And so much of a project manager's job is actually to create certainty where there is none. And that's what we do. We plan, we brainstorm, we create impeccable relationships with interest holders so that we can make more certain the uncertain, so that we can control it, so we can execute the work, so we can just do this journey to, creating something that didn't exist before, a product, service, or a result. And I feel like so much of the work of projects is actually creating certainty before you have it, um, working towards it. And my emotions towards certainty, like I said, have really changed. I was raised to know certain things to be true. And I would say that now the things that I knew for certain, I don't know, or I know that they're not certain. Right. So the black and white of my life is so gray. Um, and I think I was reared in an environment and in a culture. I was born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and that was in the 70s, the early 70s. And there was so much structure around certainty, the way you are supposed to live, the way you are supposed to see the world, the rules you're supposed to follow, the way your parents are supposed to raise you. There was a lot of very clear, I would say almost like mandates for the way life was supposed to go. And I grew up in a religious environment as well. Both sides of my family were deeply committed to their faith, and their faith was a faith that it was not open to uncertainty. It was closed. And it created a mandate for certainty there as well. So I was raised in a black and white world. And the feistiness in me, I think, was always, I was like, it's not black, it's not white, it's gray. And I would say those things. I would distinctly remember, and this is hilarious. I remember being taken to a church when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. It wasn't a church that I attended on a regular basis. And, they put me in Sunday school, which basically, for those who are not a part of the religious environment, Sunday school usually operates to just take the children away so the parents can get the good word or arguably be, I don't know, be challenged to think differently about how they're living. But you got to take the kids out of the room so the parents aren't distracted. So they put them in the basement of a church and they call it Sunday school. And I remember being in the room. I don't even remember the context. I'm 6, right? But the Sunday school teacher said something or read some text out of, you know, a scripture. And I was like, but what about this? And I remember the teacher going, we don't ask questions. And I was like, but I want to know what that is. And what about that part? And what about it? It was so bad that they removed me from the room. And I had to sit outside by myself on the floor in the basement because I was too feisty for this lovely little Sunday school teacher. And I look back on that and I'm like, wow, like I was that 6-year-old. But I think I was wrestling with certainty and uncertainty then, and that hasn't changed.
So that's a beautiful piece that you brought up around wrestling, because some people can have miles of uncertainty and be absolutely fine. Like
Yeah.
just how we process as humans is so different.
Hmm.
But for some, uncertainty can be quite challenging and quite a thing to wrestle with. So in your own journey, what did you learn from your wrestling that you might want to pass on to someone who's wrestling right now?
So, first thing that comes to mind when you say that is I actually disagree with you.
Oh, please.
And here's how I disagree. I disagree that there are some people that can handle uncertainty. Because I think in my journey with certainty, what I have come to realize is though, no, actually, I don't think any human handles uncertainty well. However, I think the people that look like they do, I think they do have certainty. They just have certainty in who they are. I think they have certainty in the midst of their own self-awareness. I think their certainty comes from a different place. They're not certain about the world around them. They're not certain about their work. They're not certain about their relationships. What they're certain about is who they are to themselves. And I think that self-awareness certainty, when you have that, I think you do go through the world looking like it doesn't matter. Like, oh, there's huge political upheaval. That's okay. I don't know if my job's going to be stable in the future. That's okay. Like these people who, let's face it, like if you ask yourself, we all know those people. And they just seem to be like, "Oh my goodness, can anything shake them?" And the answer is, yeah, of course, things can shake them. But the things that would shake you that don't shake them, I think often it's because they know who they are.
Mm.
And for me, certainty and the need to have it, for me, it has actually been a self-awareness journey. So my year of perseverating on the word uncertain, what I began to understand probably by February or March of that year was, oh, certainty isn't possible, like, ever. And I have been led to believe, perhaps even indoctrinated to believe, that certainty is possible. And I think by March, I was like, "Oh, that's not true." And that's when I was like, "Well, then how do I have certainty?" And immediately at the time, it became evident to me. How I have certainty is I go inside. I go into myself. I figure out who I am, how I feel, and I honor my intrinsic value and worth as a human. And I don't think about what other people think of me, which was really hard for me because I like to be liked. But instead, I did this like introspective work. And so I think for probably 9 months out of that 12-month year of thinking about uncertainty, I just started to dive deep into how I viewed myself. And that self awareness journey was the key for me because it meant that I was more stable with myself, which meant when uncertainty came, which it inevitably does, I didn't quake with the same fear. I was still afraid, but I had a relationship to the fear where I could isolate the fear, do logic and reason and planning. I could do my project management, application to the fear, and then I could use the fear as fuel to handle what felt destabilizing and uncertain. But for me, I think it really was that self-awareness piece. So getting back to what you said, as soon as you said it, that's what my ear heard and that's what I thought of. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying for me, that felt like what I had to do to begin to um, understand where certainty, if we have it at all, where does it come from? I feel like it comes from self-awareness.
No, that's great. And I love that you tied it to identity because, certainty and uncertainty can be in the environment. It could be in capabilities. It can be in behaviors. It can be in lots of different places, beliefs.
Mhm.
But that it's tied to identity is such a big piece because, you attach feisty
Yeah,
as the thing that you have certainty to.
absolutely.
So I guess my question with that then is coming out of this experience from a few years ago and even today, um, are there things around certainty that you hold on to that give you strength when challenged in projects?
Yeah. I think so much of my project management work, even today, I do a lot of project management education. So, as much as I manage projects and I am on project teams, and I also teach how to do it. And, when you teach, you learn the most. so, so for me, every time I'm in front of a classroom or a group of, executives or whoever I'm instructing, I'm aware that as I'm sharing with them sort of the practical kind of tips, tools, tricks, artifacts of project management, I'm like, oh, right. That's right. That's how we do that. That's how, it's spinning my mind too. And I think overall, yeah, like making certainty is how we get shit done. Making things tangible is how we do actually see inventing something that didn't exist before. But it's not the stuff, it's the people, it's the relationships. And so, what I always impress upon others when I'm even teaching basic, like writing a project charter and how to think about, capturing risk and creating a risk analysis. And I actually always want to make that about the human aspect because when you see humans with intrinsic value, when you don't look at other people and separate them and think less of them or think that you're better than them, it means that you create a healthy respect for what certainty they can bring. And I think that's what I have found to be the most profound way to approach project work and create that certainty and balance, the relationship to it is how do we view other people. Because that's the other caveat to self-awareness is you do a lot of work on yourself. You realize, stuff about you. And then all of a sudden you start to go, wait a minute. If this is what I understand about me and that gives me certainty, what do the people on my project, individual people, what do the people on my project believe about themselves? And what gives them certainty? And of course, in the professional world, you meet a lot of people, they don't have it. They don't have certainty. In fact, they're clinging to things that are only ever going to bring them uncertainty, like project management. Project management doesn't give you certainty. You actually can use the tools to create that. But I think the certainty needs to come with the relationships we build and the way we respect one another. This is also why I'm such an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've got a lot of reasons why I'm an advocate, but it just works because humans, we're built for connection. And if we prioritize connection over being right, then our work can be far more certain. And the certainty can be that we care for one another, that we respect one another, that we've built trust. And then no matter what's going on around us in the project environment, that actually the relationships, that level of certainty gives us strength to handle whatever complexity comes. Did that answer the question?
No, that's fantastic. And I love the space that you had there around separating, we'll call them the practical or technical skills.
Yes.
Okay. We have a time, we have a scope, we have a,
Yeah.
Cost. These are real, they're in the world.
Yeah.
We also have a relationship.
Yeah.
And that you can have one be uncertain while we're still working on the other.
Yeah.
So my question on that would be then, is there someone in your life that you've seen or known or worked with that really helped you come to see this relationship piece and maybe had some pro tips for you in creating those relationships?
Oh, gosh. So many people. But I think I have this, I was going to say a nasty habit. That makes it sound negative. I don't mean it negatively, but I do think that for me, it's been a part of recognizing I'm not a great manager of people. So from a human resources standpoint, I suck at telling people what to do because I have like two modes. I have completely hands-off autonomy. I trust you. I think you're awesome. And the only other mode I have is micromanager. And I am incredibly aware that micromanaging people to get work done is counterproductive to their gifts and skills, and mine for that matter. But I don't have a middle. So my nasty habit is on a project, I will always look, even if I'm not the PM, like even if I'm just a subject matter expert on the team, or I'm like performing more of a coordinator role, I will look at everyone on the team and literally put time and energy into making sure that they are their best selves. Because I'm always so invested in, I think, building other people's self-awareness. Because I've had to do it myself in order to even continue to work and be present. And so I'm always interested in other people's journey. So I tend to find, I would say, younger, more novice professionals than myself. And instead of me looking at them and going, oh, what do you know? You're young. You don't have experience like I do. I'm like, no, these people see the world. They have a POV that I am so interested in knowing about. And my point of view, my POV is different, but I want theirs and they probably need some of mine. So I'm always in this idea of I just want to inspire, I just want to motivate, and I just want to learn from how other people see the work. I think because I'm comfortable with the uncertainty of that at this stage of my career, it creates this sort of I'm I'm more interested, and seriously, I'm thinking of the people that I officially work for right now and or manage projects on behalf of. And I'm aware I'm peeling back the layers of the onion so y'all know what I really care about. But I'm more concerned about the relationships than the project. There, I said it.
Oh.
I am more interested in making sure that every individual, all the interest holders, project team members, novice professionals, I'm interested in everybody having such an exceptional relational experience with one another that the end goal of the project delivery, the value, success, whatever metric, I'm like, oh yeah, we'll do that too. But like the most important thing is the rapport in the relationship. And I think that's my nasty kind of habit. I just don't. I wonder if, and I'm literally talking out loud right now, thinking out loud. I wonder if part of that is because, funnily enough, the project details, the value delivery, it kind of takes care of itself if we prioritize relationships, if we value each other's gifts and skills, and if we build each other's self awareness, if we think about, you know, what can we be certain of? Well, we're certain of each other. I'm certain that you, Martin, are exceptional at a bunch of things that I don't know how to do. And I would hope that you are certain that I am exceptional at a bunch of things that you don't know how to do. Together, we're better.
Which is beautiful. As we start moving towards the end, I just want to ask this final question. I'm seeing little Amber on the floor because there was a question.
Yeah.
It came from a question.
Hmm.
So if you could, for all our listeners out there, maybe provide, what kind of question would you want the listeners to be asking themselves so that they can go down this journey themselves?
It's a really loaded question. No, you know what? Okay, so if I go back to like, if I'm channeling the little 6-year-old who at the time was just curious and was getting shut down. And I'm just so grateful that in my journey that being shut down didn't shut me down for good. I'll tell you, it did in a lot of ways for a long time. But at this stage, I am far more opening. I'm aware that I have opened up those pockets, and there's many more to come. But I think like my question that I would have asked myself then, or I would have wanted to ask, was who are you? What your, and I've mentioned POV, point of view. Like, what is your unique point of view? Case in point, really quickly, I I want to challenge people that use the word bias as a negative. I want you to be challenged to think your bias, my friends, the way you see the world, the filters that you carry, these are not negatives. They are opportunities for you to have a unique perspective. They become negative when you don't understand them yourself. You don't understand their origin, you don't understand, or you haven't thought about, why do I see the world that way? And that's where self-awareness comes in. And I can tell you that the only certainty that I have found is in myself. It is in understanding what is certain about me is I know that I have bias in a bunch of ways, but I am consistently asking myself, where did that bias come from? And then because I'm informing myself around that bias, I have power over that bias to not use it as an instrument of harm for others or, literally it gives me opportunity for self-control. And so I think for that 6-year-old, like, it wasn't about stopping asking questions. I would want to empower that 6-year-old and everyone that's listening to be asking yourself, who are you? Because you, period, exceptional, magical. um, we're magical. We've been led to believe that we aren't, or that we can only get magic if we go to school to get it. It's just not true. So what is your magic? And once you begin to tap into your unique magic, you will have certainty. And the certainty won't be the world around you. It will be you. You will have certainty of you. And when you show up to do your project work with certainty in yourself, you share your bias in a constructive, diplomatic way, and that helps us do better work. It just does. So ask yourself, who are you? And find the certainty within yourself. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for putting that story down. And thank you again for everything you bring to this feisty world.
Well, thank you, Martin, for asking questions that challenge me to think on the fly.
Awesome. And we'll see you for the next episode.
Bye.